Hello and welcome to Distinctions for Life. I'm your host, Ron Davis. On Distinctions for Life, I help people get what they really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. And every week, I come out with a new video, sort of giving you a self-improvement tip, personal development, whatever word you want to use to describe what I do. And in the month of November, I am doing the National Novel Writing Month, and I'm writing a new novel. And so I'm using that as sort of not a platform, but a thing to learn from. So I believe that writing this novel will help me learn interesting things that will be new distinctions that I can share with you. Or if you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe, and you will get those videos over this period of time. As part of doing NaNoWriMo and connecting it to Distinctions for Life, I am going to announce today on this live stream what my novel is. Now, if we're going to learn from a Distinctions for Life sort of point of view what I'm learning from doing a novel, then I need to talk about certain things. And so one of the things I'm talking about is why I picked the particular novel I picked. Before I do that, we're going to take a quick step back. So in case you have ever done NaNoWriMo or National Novel Writing Month, I'll explain quickly what that is and point you to the fact that you can go get more information on the nanowrimo.org site. And that is NaNoWriMo.org, National Novel Writing Month. You can Google that. You'll get their website. What National Novel Writing Month does is it says in the month of November, between November 1st and November 30th, you are going to write 50,000 words on a novel. The official rules say 50,000 words on the first draft of a new novel. So something you haven't written before, which is relevant to my choices about what I chose to do. Because you see, I did NaNoWriMo in 2017. That was the first time I'd ever done it. I have never completed a novel, even the first draft of a novel. I have written and published computer books, did that a long time ago, and numerous articles on writing. So I kind of know a little bit about writing, or at least about putting words on a page or on a blog screen or in a magazine. But I haven't done the create it from scratch whole thing novel writing. So I decided to do that in 2017 for NaNoWriMo. And the book I started then was called The League, The Secret Years. It was sort of a working title. I have had, as many writers have, a story in my head or a world to build that I've built in my head over the years about a particular thing. And that's what The League was. That's what The League is. It's still a story in my head. The Secret Years were just the first part of that story, sort of an epic, at the very least, a trilogy. And I wanted to write that in 2017. So I started in October of 2017 preparing, which also meant, since I knew nothing about how to write a novel, I thought I should actually do it, because I am a firm believer that action teaches like research never will. So if I want to know what it's like to write 1,666 words every day, then I need to do that before I have to do it in November. So I started writing in October, and I started trying to outline and trying to plot, figure out what I was going to write, and all that stuff on that particular book. Now, I'm talking a lot about this book, not just because of what I learned from doing that particular exercise, but also because finishing that book or writing more on that book is one option for this November, for this NaNoWriMo. To go back to that book. As a matter of fact, about a month ago, when I decided that I would do this, I'd do Nano again, I wanted to see what that book was like. And there's 80,000 words on that book, because I ended up writing about 20,000 words in October of 2017 in preparation. So writing scenes that would go into that book even before I started the official NaNoWriMo. And then when I did Nano itself, my word goal was 2,000 words a day because I figured I would miss some days. And I'm going to talk a little about, in a particular distinction, about how much I got done and how many words per day I did. Excuse me. But I did manage to do 50,000 words in November and more. So I did a number of words more. And then after that, I've written a few more words. That's why it comes up to about 80,000 words. And when I came back to the idea of doing Nano again, and maybe writing this book some more, I decided I needed to go back and read it. And just because, I don't know, I wanted to, I printed it out. So actually, it's sitting right here. This notebook right here is the printout of my book that I wrote in 2017, or the first part of it, because I really felt like after 80,000 words, this book was about at the third of a way through point, which was actually one of the things that intimidated me and made me stop working on it. Was like, if this is like it at 80,000 words and it's a third of the way through, and that's just the first book in a trilogy, maybe I am writing too much. And I was writing too much. And I've learned some lessons about that. One of the interesting things about the League book and bringing it back was, so when I wrote this in 2017, it is a science fiction novel set in modern day times. And I got to stop starting every sentence with "and." Been out of Toastmasters too long. And it's very hard to do, man. It's hard. It's hard. This modern day novel, I started every chapter or every scene change with the date. And since it's modern day, because it's about a character who finds this technology and how he develops that in secret in modern day times, and creates his own sort of government. That's a very short kind of version of what the League's about. But it was in modern day times. And what's interesting is in September, I decided, I'm going to print this thing out and look at it. And so I printed it, and I don't know if anybody's going to be able to see this. I still think this is the coolest thing because it was the day after I printed it. I pulled up the first page to edit it. Let's see. Are you gonna do your thing? Nope, you can't do it. All right. I will just tell you that the first day, the first line of my novel says Monday, September 28th, 2020. And so my novel actually started this year. But as when I came back to it in from 2017 to 2020, you don't get very far into a novel that you wrote thinking what 2020 would be like before you're like, that's not what 2020 is like. It actually starts with a live stream of a commercial space organization called Blue X doing a launch. And there's 3 people standing right next to each other during this launch. Nobody's wearing a mask and they're not social distanced. And it was just weird reading it because 2020 is not what you thought it was. I have since, when I went back to try and do this, I moved it 5 years into the future, which is interesting because as we've seen, there's going to be a new normal, and who knows what that's going to be in 2025. Also, 2025 is when a lot of commercial space people will say they're going to go to the moon, and going to the moon is a very central thing for the League. So that was one option I had, to go back and finish the Secret Years in 2020. Now, the rules of NaNoWriMo are technically that you should be starting from zero or a very new novel, and you should do the whole thing in November. So starting with a work that's already at 80,000 words is not doing the rules. Even if you only count the 50 that you write, then it's really, you're not starting with a new novel. You're not starting with a new idea. And that was a big drawback for me. Although I was willing to toss those rules because that's kind of the point of Nano, right? That the point is to write 50,000 words. It's not that you have to create the world's greatest novel. A lot of people do nonfiction. A lot of people do screenplays instead, although I don't think you do a 50,000 word screenplay. But it's just, the point is to work on a novel or work on a writing project every day for the month of November, and to get the encouragement that you get from being part of the NaNoWriMo community, and the accountability and the oomph that you just get behind that. So I was willing to do Nat League again if that's what I needed to do, if that was really what was calling me for my project in 2017. And I did the right through. I printed it out. I read it through. I saw scenes I would cut. I saw lots of stuff. I did a little copy editing kind of stuff. I had scenes in there that I thought were really, really great. And I had scenes in there that I was like, what are you talking about? Because you learn a lot doing the thing. Once again, we come back to doing is the key. Now, another advantage that the League has is I actually know where the ending of the League is. And one of the things I did this month was I actually wrote the last scene, pulled a J.K. Rowling idea there that I would write the last scene. All right, so I've talked a lot about the League. Let me go on to my other idea. Now, my other idea is called The Adventures of Space Girl Red. And this actually is another fascinating sort of thing. Back in the early 2000s, the first, I don't know what we're going to call that first thing, the aughts, the 2000 aughts, I did a photo shoot. I did a lot of photography back there. Back then, a lot of glamour and model photography and cosplay and all that kind of thing. And I had this one shoot with a model named Annabelle Lee, and I had bought these 2 toy ray guns at a toy store, but it was like an outlet of a toy store. And they were really cool. And I thought, hey, we can do some kind of shoot. And so we were going to do this sort of this pin-up-y, pulpy, ray gun based photo shoot. And we did this. And she had this outfit that was sort of like red spandexy pants and a red top, and which we shot. And so we shot that, and I ended up doing some cool Photoshop to make the ray guns look really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And because she dressed in red, I lit in red, and everything was about being red. And her hair was red. It was the whole 9 yards. Everything was about being red. And so that's where Space Girl Red came from. I was like, well, that's what I called those pictures. She was Space Girl Red. A few days or weeks later, I was shooting with another friend of mine, Shauna Rensher. She's another model. And we decided that we would do blue. So she wore a blue wig and a black sort of cat suit with a black corset. And we used those same guns, which when I photoshopped them with blue and not red. And then I had this idea that there was Space Girl Blue. So there was red, there was blue. And it's just, you create the characters, and then the plot starts coming, and, red and blue was like red's nemesis, and I ended up making this Facebook cover that had this picture of red with the gun. Blue with the gun. And it said, never trust red. It never said, never trust blue. And I had this picture of her with the gun stuck behind her back. And it's cool. It's a very cool picture. And I will be bringing those out if I decide to do Space Girl. But so I had 2 characters, and I've always been like, it would be cool to do like a comic book of Space Girls, red, blue, green, a whole rainbow of colors. And that came back to me when I'm trying to decide, well, is there something that I could write that would be brand new? Well, I could write Space Girls, and I could write Space Girl Red. And that idea was still in my head. And the challenge too of trying to take kind of what is a very visual thing, the big driving force behind Space Girls was that they were this pin-up-y 50s thick pulp look, with ray guns and flying saucers and everything you could think of. And I even started collecting sort of these retro space tropes. Think the Jetsons for just how crazy weird these things would be. And that was really sort of the core theme of this, was its aesthetic as much as its story. But when I started thinking now in October about doing something in November, and how if I wanted to do something brand new, I could do Space Girls. So I start working with Space Girls, and then you kind of have to deal with the cultural changes that between when we were making girls in spacesuits with bubble helmets and ray guns in the 50s. They were always the damsel in distress, and they were the ones who I watched a movie called Flight to Mars, which had really great costumes for the Space Girl kind of thing. It was made in the 40s or 50s, and they go to Mars, and there's like one woman on the crew, and she meets the Martian people, and they're putting them up in their new quarters on Mars. And the Martian woman who takes them there, they said, then the one woman on the crew of the Earth ship says, "Where's the kitchen? I can't wait to find the kitchen now that we're here." And she's like, "Why do you need a kitchen?" And she says, "So I can prepare meals for everybody." Which right there, you're just like, why did the one woman who was on this trip because she was a scientist, or she was a scientist because she learned it from the guys, and she just got so good at it they couldn't leave her behind. So see, they got all that stuff, and when the Martian woman heard her say this, she's like, "Oh, well, we don't have kitchens that way. We have what we call the food laboratory, and there's one in a neighborhood, and then the food is prepared and it's just delivered." And she opens some, panel in the wall, and here's dinner, magically created. And the woman says, "This is a woman's dream." And I'm like, okay, well, we don't want to do that aspect of this kitschy 50s sort of one Penman kind of thing, right? So that actually ends up informing the book in a very interesting way. And I have actually wrote down some, when I was trying to make these decisions, I wrote down some lists. These are the things that I'm never going to do. And one was, she'll never be a damsel in distress. 2, she's going to be a badass and kick ass, and that's her job, right? Like the whole thing is that is her job. Matter of fact, one of the questions I ask when I'm thinking about things for her to do is, what would James Bond do? Because to me, Space Girl Red, all the Space Girls are the James Bonds of their planet. So that's the kind of adventure that they need to be having, and that's the role they need to be having. And as this idea started to grow, it actually got harder and harder to hang on to that kitsch that could easily get tied to the those sort of cultural norms of the time. And as I fought those, the novel actually got deeper, because I was like, I'm not going to try and make this like a deep character arcs of change, and it's just to let you fly around in flying saucers and shoot things, and it's just going to be fun. It doesn't have to have a deeper message. But then you start thinking, well, where does she come from? Is this a planet with only women? And why are there only women? And what does it mean? And like, you called her a space girl. Why didn't you call her a space woman? And all of those things started coming up, and the novel idea started getting deeper and deeper. And then I recently had a whole epiphany, which is the kind of thing that you learn, that I'm learning as I'm writing, that maybe I'll share on a distinction. One of the things I got was this idea of privilege, and the fact that on her planet, women's opinions are are given precedence over men's opinions. And so we have that idea. And then what happens when she comes into contact with other cultures that may or may not have those same kind of things? So now you've got this super cultural aspect, because she's flying around the universe, going to different planets, having different things happen. But I still wanted to have that aesthetic. And so I'm still trying to find every one of those kind of pulpy tropes, from flying saucers, ray guns, jetpacks. I'm even working killer robots and flying monkeys into this, right? All of those things are in there. And she's, hot and sexy and just can do everything in a completely unrealistic manner that you expect from that kind of pulpy stuff. But I'm fighting any idea that she is a damsel in distress, or she's not the one in control. So I read a series of a first book, and a new one's coming out, How Rory Somebody Destroyed the Multiverse, and they called it a feminist fairy tale. And I'm like, I don't really consider myself to be the epitome of feminism, that's for sure. and the idea that, I'm a guy writing writing a story about a woman, but that's really kind of what I'm doing in one sense, is writing a novel about a character that would have been a sexist trope, and now putting her into a modern sensibility of that trope. And that is the idea behind Space Girls. So if I write Adventures of Space Girl Red, that's sort of all the stuff that's coming along behind that, and all the pluses and minuses to it. Now, the plus from a Nano point of view is I've until a week ago, I had never written anything in that book. So there was no idea of plot. Well, my thought was she gets in her flying saucer and she just goes from place to place and she has adventures, and Blue tries to stop her and causes her problems, and that's the whole thing. That's 100% the thing. She just goes from place to place and has adventures. Not a very strong plot, really. And so I'm going to talk, because I've been babbling on for quite a while here, but I'm going to give just a couple more struggles that I had trying to make this decision between doing League and doing Space Girl, The Adventures of Space Girl Red. One is the idea that I'm just not that good. So I've never written a novel. I've never completed a novel. I've never completed the first draft of a novel. I haven't even really written complete short stories. I've certainly never had anything fictional published. So I'm just not good enough to do any of this. Well, first of all, you got to throw that out as imposter syndrome to start with. Second, even if I'm not good, I need to write. You need to write. That's what makes you good. And then, so that kind of got past me. But then there's this idea that the League is this story that has been with me for decades, and I feel like I'm not good enough to write it yet. So that's one of the negatives against writing the League, was that it wasn't that good. And then I could look at Space Girls and say, it doesn't have to be that good, because it's so weird. One thing that they tell you to do when you're writing a novel is pick an idea that you like, that's going to hold your attention. It's going to keep you going in the middle when it's hard. And the truth is, in both of these novels, I really like the idea, and they are both fun. So that's not a criteria that was going to make the decision for me. The criteria in the end, I think, that made the decision for me was the fact that Nano wants you to do something new. So this is the big reveal for 2020's National Novel Writing Month. I am going to write The Adventures of Space Girl Red by R.A. Davis. I'm using that pen name for this one. And this is a picture from that photo shoot of Annabelle Lee, and that's her red outfit and my ray gun. And this is what I'm going to write in November, The Adventures of Space Girl Red. And hopefully it will be very interesting. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a couple of things. Like, one thing I'm thinking about possibly doing is I'm trying to get Segaran to let me, is to post chapters on Wattpad of the book as I go. Although I'm going to talk about this in one of the distinctions for life that has to do with writing, which is there's two parts of your brain. There's the convergent and the divergent, and the convergent is all about cutting off choices and making less. That's the editing side. And the divergent is the creative and the making side. And that is what you need to be doing when you're writing, is you need to be creating and not editing. And if I want to put it on Wattpad, this isn't just vomit words out and then put them on online. So I'm not sure about that, whether I want to do that, because I would have to take time to edit, and I don't know that I want to take time to edit, and I don't want to post anything that's not edited. So that's a toss-up. I don't know if I'm going to do that kind of thing. I'm also thinking and possibly planning to do streams like this once a week. and talk about what progress I made and what issues came up and what I learned from my characters and how I learned those things as well. If you watch this later, because nobody's on right now, but if you watch this later and you would be interested in that, you need to subscribe, of course, because you'll get notifications. And let me know. Leave a comment below and let me know that you watched this or like it. And I will be more inclined to do regular live streams of the Adventures of Space Girl Red. Well, that is my big announcement. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Distinctions for Life channel. There will be a new video coming out on Sunday about the definition of done. Until next time, I'm Ron Davis.